Yes, you can knit the bottom up brimless slouchy with any extra large loom you have on hand right now. Hey, it's Denise from LoomaHat.com. For a complete list of supplies, visit the website or see the description below. Alright, let's begin. I added stitch markers to my loom and I'm doing every other peg with the exception of the first and last. My loom is an odd number loom, and so these two pegs will have the same stitches always. Now I take my working yarn, I'm going to secure it to the anchor peg, and then I'm putting my yarn between the first and last, and I'm going to the right. You can go to the left, that has no effect on this pattern. And then I'm going to zigzag the working yarn in and out, in and out, in and out until I get back to the front of my loom. And my first and last may not be like yours, but I go behind my last and in front of my first peg, and then I lay the yarn loosely in front of those, and with my hook I'm going to knit off every peg that has two loops. And remember that my first and last may not look like your first and last, only because we might have a different number of pegs. Don't overthink it. Just do like I did. When you get to the last one, just place your yarn loosely in front of the ones that follow, and then you're just going to knit off every peg with two loops. And this peg kept coming out, so I added a little paper there. FYI, I don't glue my pegs. I do that instead. I add a little paper and put it back in, and my peg lives there happily without a problem. Now here's my last peg. You see that it only has one loop, and so I'm going to lay it in front of that one and my first peg, and now I'm going to wrap all of my pegs. This is my first row. This is row 1, and for row 1 I'm doing E-wrap, and so I'm going to wrap all of my pegs, and the last one I wrap is the first one that I knit off. That secures my yarn, and now I don't have to worry about it. Now I can just knit off all of my loops. So you see I have some loops on the top, some on the bottom. I just knit off all of the loops that are on the bottom, and I keep going all around the loom. And that was my E-wrap row, which was row 1. I'm ready for row 2, but before I do that, I'm going to take this knot off my anchor peg. My yarn is pretty secure at this point, and I'm not too concerned. So I start here on peg 1 by wrapping and knitting off, and then for peg 2, I'm going to do a purl stitch. So from the top, I take my hook, I scoop it up, create a new loop, take the old loop off, put the new loop on, and pull. And I'm going to repeat that process. I'm going to wrap the next peg, knit off, and then I'm going to, from the top, scoop up, create a new loop, take the old one off, put the new one on, and pull. And then my next one is an E-wrap. These are called E-wraps because the yarn looks like an E-wrap, but I'm not going to knit it off. I'm just going to go to the next one and do my purl. And now I'm going to do an E-wrap and then my purl. And just to make things go faster, I'm not going to knit off my E-wrap. I'm just going to go ahead and go on and do the purl. I will knit off later when I've done my whole loom. Okay, so I'm on my last one. I'm going to knit off, and remember I did the knit off here. I also did it here. So I'm going to start knitting off the ones that I didn't at the beginning. So I'm just knitting off every other one, which were my E-wraps. Alright, you're done with row 2, and now what you're going to do is repeat the pattern. You're going to do one row of knit and one row of knit 1, purl 1, until you reach your desired length. In my case, it was a total of 52 rows. For those of you unfamiliar or not comfortable with the understanding of repeating a pattern, we are on row 3, and I am repeating row 1. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with row 1, which is a row of knits, and to be more exact, the E-wrap version of the knit stitch. And so I wrapped all my pegs, and I'm going now to knit off. Row 3 is a repeat of row 1. Once I finish with my knit off, then I'm on to row 4, which is the same as row 2, because first I repeat row 1 and then I repeat row 2 in that order. So row 4 is a repeat of row 2. It is a knit 1, purl 1. I do want you to keep in mind that I'm using a large gauge loom, and that is determined by the space between one peg and the other. So if you have a smaller space between one peg and the other, you have a small gauge loom, which means you probably have a lot more pegs than I do. It may take more rows for you to get the same length I did. For my 52 rows, I got a length of 13 inches. I'm also using chunky yarn. If you're using medium weight yarn, which is called worsted weight, you may need to knit with 2 strands as one, and I'll give you a link to a video on how to do that. When you're done knitting your rows, we're ready for the cast off, and we're going to be using the super stretchy bind off. It is a hacked version, and I'll show you when I hack it. For this, you're going to wrap the working yarn around your loom 2 times. If you don't have enough yarn, then do at least 1.5. Get your scissors, cut the working yarn, and now with the hook, you're going to put the yarn under the next 2 pegs. You're actually skipping the first one right here, peg 1. You're going to skip it, go to peg 2, take your hook from the top, and you're going to scoop your yarn up and through. You want to feed it through your yarn, through your loop completely, pull on the working yarn, and then go back to the one you skipped, put it on the top of the existing loops, and scoop down and through those 2 loops. And you're going to repeat that process. You're going to skip one, go to the next one, scoop the yarn upward and through the loop, tighten it a little bit, go back to the peg that you skipped, and from the top you're going to scoop the yarn down and through those 2 loops. And then here's my hack. You're going to go back and take off that loop, and now repeat the process. You're skipping one, going to the next one. From the top, scoop up, go back to the peg that you skipped, and from the top, scoop down. And again, I am tightening my loop in every process and removing that previous one. And now I wanted to show you that I am going to be using my needle. This is an option for me. I find it easier. You can continue to use your hook. I like this because I can fold the working yarn in half, and when I pull through this, see how long that needle, that working yarn was, and how long it took me to pull it through. But if I fold it in half, when I feed my yarn through the loop, it's half of it. Okay, and don't skip any parts. That include the one where you go back and remove the loop from the peg. If you follow this pattern exactly, you're going to have a nice clean edge. Then if you leave them on, and I will give you a link to a video that focuses on this particular technique, and it will show you the difference if you leave the loop on the pegs for last. You can clearly see the difference when you do that and when you don't, when you remove the loops, which is really important. So continue until you get all the way back to the front of the loom, and you're on that last peg, and you're going to do the regular thing. You skip it, go through it, but the difference here on that last one is that it needs for you to go back again. So you're going to go through that one 2 times. Your work is now off the loom, and you're going to sew these stitches together. It's just going to give you a cleaner finished look. And I'm going to put a knot here, but you don't have to. And then just bring my yarn into the inside, and there you have a nice clean edge. On the other side is your drawstring. You could just pull it and it closes the top of your hat. And I was going to sew until I remembered that my needle is on the other end, and so I'm going to go ahead and weave in my end. I go upward towards the hat, and I like to kind of turn my working yarn back in the opposite direction in case I need to wash the hat. It's a bit more secure, and like I said, now you can take your needle and we can go back to the top of the hat to close it nicely. And you're going to take the work and put it inside out so that you're on the inside of the hat. Pull on your drawstring to try to close that opening as much as you can. You are going to need to sew this, and we're going to sew in a circular manner. So you will see those loops when you created that cast on, and I do cut off some of the excess yarn just so that I don't have to feed it. I don't have to feed so much yarn through these loops up here on the very top. And like I said, you are sewing in a circle. Pull on your yarn as you sew so that you're closing the opening, and it will close up nicely. You just have to sew and pull until it's at the point where you want, and then make a knot. You can bring your working yarn back to the top, and there you have it. I love this stitch. It is the broken rib. It works so well. Guys, I hope you like this project as much as I do. I want to thank Carol from Promise Learning and Lori Kopaszewski for covering the cost of closed captioning. I want to say thanks for watching the video. If you like it, share it. That helps me a lot. And don't forget to comment. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe.